Hi and welcome. I am Atcha and I just finished having my talk at the AMA Computer College Caloocan's Developer Student Club on their web series, Episode 3. ABC is for kids and SQL is for you. I hope you guys learned a lot. And here is my high resolution video. If you are new here, welcome to my channel. I am Atcha Abe. Take care, God bless, I value your time and enjoy watching.
For the introduction of our speaker, Nancy. Thank you.
Hi. Okay, that's it for our icebreaker and totoo na medyo nakaka-challenge yung icebreaker natin ngayon. Cheers to ice train. Ayun. Just kidding. But hold that up, we're not yet done. We're going to ask you guys kung anong first impression nyo about SQL. So, syempre sa una, hindi natin alam kung ano yun, di ba? Tapos, tatlong letters. Ano yun, di ba? So, some of us merong background and some of us wala tayong background doon. So, let us know your first impression about SQL. So, I'd like you to go to menti.com. There you go. And the link and the code will be sent in the chat box by our team. And yun, you could check that out. Okay? So let's wait for your first impressions about SQL. Complicated? Yes, it's complicated ba? Okay. Ano pa kaya? Hard. Ayan, synonym na complicated yung hard. Okay. Challenging. Yes, challenging. Ano pa? Guys, it can be Tagalog or English ha. Pwede kahit ano. Database. Yes. Tama agad ah. Okay, fun. SQL is fun. Okay, powerful. Yes, powerful. Malalaman natin kung bakit powerful. Yan, masakit. Bakit masakit? Okay. Ano pa? Interesting, yes. Oh, talagang interesting yung SQL kapag talagang wala pa tayong idea. Kaya nga first impression, okay, challenging. Okay. Ano to? Difficult? Yes. Oh, easy. Thanks. Structure? Yes, cool. And I guess yan lang siguro yung first impressions natin about SQL. And I think some of us naman is nakaka-relate sa SQL, sa first impression natin sa word bank. Ayun, time consuming. Yan, malawak. Yan. So, for today, we will break our first impressions about SQL. So, we strive to learn in today's situation, we are grateful that many people are trying to reach us out by sharing their experiences and knowledge. And I'd like to commend our guest speaker for offering us many contents that will give us tips about online classes, few tutorials, being a computer science student, web development, online peer mentoring, and more. She uses her platform on Facebook and YouTube to reach out virtually amidst the pandemic. She is a third year computer science student at St. Paul University Manila who is dedicated to helping other students to learn about CSIT courses. So let's welcome Miss Athena Aliafe Abe. Hello, Miss Athena or Miss Acha.
Hi! Hello!
Hello.
Can you guys hear
I'm
me? Hello?
yes, loud and clear po.
Okay. Kamusta na kayo? Hello? Okay pa? Hi.
Okay, it's good to have you here po and thanks for joining us and thank you for helping other students to share and provide your experiences in public. So we're hoping to get along with you today.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Okay. Should I start na? Okay. Okay, let's start. So, Good afternoon, everyone. So I have been introduced. Again, I am Athena Atcha Abe, but you can call me Atcha. So in today's episode, it is entitled ABC is for kids, but SQL is for you. So before I begin, I would like to ask, if you guys know what does SQL mean, you can chat it. If you guys already have a background about SQL, so what does SQL stand for? Sabi ni Leo Carly Abato, Structured Query Language. Di mo ba yan di ba ginugel? Okay, thank you Justin and Paolo. Yes, so SQL stands for Structured Query Language. So a brief background about the structured query language. It is actually a programming language that is used to access or manipulate databases. So this is according to Wikipedia. It is the SQL or standard structured query language became a standard for the ANSI or American National Standards Institute in 1986. And on ISO, also known as International Organization for Standardization, in 1987. So that is just a brief history of SQL. Moving on, our objectives for today, we have 3. So we're going to start tackling about the basic CRUD operations, followed by the aggregate functions, and lastly, about database relationships. Yes, sa database, may relasyon din po. Okay. Next. We're going to start with the basic CRUD operations. So in a programmer's world, I would say, if you are a programmer or if you are aspiring to be a programmer, we have CRUD operations. These are the 4 basic functions of persistent storage, and it can be used by both the developer and the user. So to make it simple or easier to comprehend, actually all of us, we don't know it, but we all are using the basic CRUD operation. So I would move on and elaborate what the CRUD operations are. So starting with the letter C, we have here create. So create means to add new entries. Also in SQL, create means to create databases, to create tables, create entries, fields, to add information or data in a column or a row. So next is letter R, we have read. This is defined as to retrieve, search, or view existing entries. Next for letter U, we have update or edit existing entries. The other term for update is to modify. So like each and every one of us, we do this all the time. We create files, especially students or other professionals, we use CRUD operations in our daily life. And last is letter D, delete, or other term is to deactivate existing entries. So now we will be going to in a more technical or deeper part of SQL, which is now we're going to learn about the basic CRUD operations using SQL statements. There. So first, I'm going to show you how to create a database using a WAMP server. And my reference in today's lecture is from W3 Schools. That is what we use as a reference. So here is this is the first thing that you see when you open WAMP server. So you have here, this is the interface. So use PHP myadmin, username, and then password. So when making databases is what actually what we use. So in creating database, there are many ways. You can do it manually here in the SQL field, or you can simply click new and then create your database here. So but in this example, we will do it manually. So in today's lecture, I will be making, this is my example in all throughout the objectives is an LMS or a learning management system This is what most of us are currently familiar with, and we are currently using. Different learning management systems such as Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams. So that is one of the examples. So let me start with creating a database. I have already made this database, but I will add another one. Let's have another example for you to see it. So create a database. Let's say LMS2DB. So this is an easier way that you can create. So that is the easiest way. But in doing an SQL statement, so we have here create database and then LMS3DB. And then you set up click. See on the number 2 procedure here is this click go, and there you have it. You have your database set. So we have here LMS2 is the more easier way, and if you want it to do it manually using SQL statements, this is the other way. So next, we're going to create a student. So given our given our example here, and since I already created LMSDB here, we will be creating a student. So we also have an easier way to do it, which is it is already given here. When you create a database, it shows this interface, which is to create a table. So here we're going to create a table student. Let me check. Okay. So in the table student, we have how many columns? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 columns in student table. So I'm going to student and 8. And then on the number 3 procedure, just click on go. It's loading. There, okay. So this is how you create a table. But if you want to create a table manually using SQL statement, okay, you can create it here. So moving on, you can see when you create your table, ito, ayan, here. Ito pala siya nalagay. Okay, when you create it here, saan ba? Dito na ako. Here. Wala. Okay, again. Sorry guys. Here. So when you create a student table, this is the next thing that you're going to see. So given shown in the slide, you have to put your primary key or ID. So in this case, we created a student table. We will be creating the student ID followed by the first name, middle name, last name, username. So this is what this is what the kind of attributes that you usually use or information that you actually use when you create a learning management system. So under the student table, we need their student ID, we need to input our first name, our middle name, last name, username, password, mobile number, and email address. So next is the different types. So I will not be technical into this, but we have different data types. We have integer, varchar. So you should always check if the attribute or field that you are going to use is corresponding to your data type. So obviously, student IDs, actually, it can be integer or a varchar. So, but for this today, we're going to use integer. The length or values, we have different standard or default values. We have 255 or 35. It depends on how big your database is going to be. The next is first name. Of course, definitely, first name is a text. And the default value or is 35. Middle name, same goes with this, text again, and then 35. Okay. Username, I have put here varchar. Oh, I forgot. So, let's give a scenario. There is, how about someone asked, Atcha, how about last name? How are we going to consider those people who have last names like the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth? So, we're going to use varchar for that. So, it can also include different, example, dash, so something like that. So, varchar, but it depends. So, you sometimes have to consider other data types that can be also correspondent to your attribute or field. Next is password. So password is obviously a varchar. So given nowadays, when we make our passwords, it needs an uppercase, lowercase, and a number. And I forgot. Put okay, 35. It depends on you on how lengthy your field is going to be. And then for mobile number, for now, I will be putting integer, but we have 11 digits in a mobile number. And to make it how's the term? So to make it specific, we put here 11 for the length. And email address, varchar, because there is an at or other, okay. So next, 35. So after doing that, so if you're going to use student ID as your primary key, AI stands for auto-increment. So auto-increment means to automatically add. So if you're going to input a data for student, it will be a student 1. Then if you're going to enter another entry, it can be automatically saved as student number 2 and so on. So next, you're going to, in this example, you're going to click on save, not go. So save. Oh, what happened? Oh, there. Okay. So now we successfully created our student table. So as you can see, we have 8 columns here. Right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So we have student ID, first name, middle name, last name, username, password, a mobile number, and email address. Moving on. Now we're going to create a table for the professor, but it is now so like I have said, you can do this in this interface or you can do it manually using SQL statements. So you might feel intimidated or parang hala, ang komplikado naman to. But this is actually enjoyable to learn kasi we have copy paste. So you don't worry, you don't have to memorize the statements. The important thing here is to really analyze what specific statements that you need. So let's say create database. So you put create database and then you should be mindful of the statements. You don't have to memorize every point in here. So doing it manually, so now I'm going to make it bigger for you guys to see it. So in the first line, we're going to now we're going to create a professor table. So create table and then professor. Okay. And then parentheses under it. So now this is it is a little challenging because you have to do it one by one instead of clicking like the first example that I did. So obviously we need to make a primary key. So we need to put the professor, the professor's ID. So professor ID, and then our data type is varchar. So this is a different example. A while ago in the student ID we used integer. Now we're going to use varchar. For example, an example of the professor ID is FAC and then -001. That is an example of a different ID. And then, inside the close and open parenthesis beside varchar, we will put the length. So, let's say 255. That is an example. Oh, okay. And then, comma, followed by comma. And then, same goes with the others. So, first name, and then again, data type. And then, length is 35. Middle name. Oh, this is varchar. Okay. So, you can do it text or varchar. It depends. Malay nyo, mayroong pinangalanan yung anak nila na JJ na may numbers. Okay, ayan. So, text. Sana okay pa po kayo dyan. Pakigalaw po ang baso. Okay, last name. Last name, text, and then 35. Again, it depends on you, depends on the kind of database that you're gonna create. Some people have really a unique name, so we have to consider them as well. So next is username. Username, varchar, and then 35. And then mobile number, again, mobile number, it only has 11 digits. So, int.
Hi, Miss Atcha. Excuse me.
Yes.
Medyo blurred po yung presentation po. Medyo hindi po kita yung mga characters. Ayan.
Oh no! Wait.
Sorry for interrupting po.
Okay lang. Ayan. Kita niyo na ba? Ayan. Okay na?
Yes, better po. Better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Very good. May paparamdam kayo. Ayan. Okay. Mobile number and then email address. So, varchar because we have at. Oh. So, this is, I have noticed then kasi while doing this presentation that if you do it manually, sometimes it doesn't recognize that you want to add a space in your, the term we use in programming is the variable name. So, in this case, if I want to do it, this email add with a space, nagiging ganyan siya. Pero kapag, when you do it, the easier way, you can add space without experiencing or encountering any errors. So, next is 35. And then, so this is the difference. So, at the first example or the first method, you can do the primary key at the very start. So, if you do it manually using SQL statements, you will identify your primary key at the very last. So, the primary key again is to identify the ID of your table. So, that is the identifier. So, in here, our primary key, we will assign Professor ID as our primary key. Then, don't forget, semicolon, and then, next step, as you can see, here is go, so select go, okay, so ganyan, ito yung maganda tignan, kulay green, sabihin kumana yung SQL statement na ginawa natin. So, as you can see here, we have created a table for a professor. Okay. Next is, so here, table student. So, this is a way to, now we're going to insert pala. Insert. Ayan, this is, now we're done with the first CRUD operation, which is to create. Now we're going to insert. Okay, now we're going to insert. So, in here, we're going to insert a data in the table student. So, table student. Close this. Yan, SQL. So, in creating, So, in here, under the SQL tab, we have here columns that you can easily select when doing your statement. So, the statement for insert is obviously insert, and then into, and then the table, your chosen table, and then close and open parenthesis. And then you select. So, since in this presentation, you can see that student ID is not selected because student ID, as what we have done earlier, is auto-incremented. So, it automatically adds a digit every entry. So, instead of doing it manually, it is automatic. So, instead of putting in that in our statement and insert, we're just gonna select the other 7 statements, which are first name, comma, middle name, comma, and then last name, username, password, mobile number, and email address. Okay, after that, next in the statement is values that you're going to insert in every field, in every column. So, you have to do it the same way you added them. So, the first value that you're going to insert is the first name. So, in order to do that, we're going to do a single quotation mark followed by your first name, my first name, Athena, and then middle name. Let's just, okay, and then, comma, and then last name. And then your username, Atcha 123, ganyan. And then your password. So, we actually, when doing SQL, your password should always be encrypted, but that is a more deeper and technical part of SQL. So, sabi nyo nga kanina na challenging, complicated. So, huwag kayong mag-alala. Hindi ko ituturo yun. So, ito lang muna. So, let's say is password is, huwag nyo ito gagayahin. Password. Yan, yan. Password. And then, followed by mobile number 012345678990. Ayan, tama na 11 na ba yan? Ayan. And then, last is yung email address. Which is also kailangan, ayan pala, I forgot to mention, if you're going to put digits, you don't have to put single quotation marks. So, this is only for text values, for strings, varchar, none. So, aking email address, if you want to inquire, this is my email address, tinaalifeabe@gmail.com. Ayan, nag-plug na din ako, di ba? And then, ayan, next step is go. Tama ba? Ayan, so tama. Check na natin. Next is, ayan, ito daw dapat yung output. So, tingnan natin kung tama yung output. Ang Tagalog na lang ako bigla, pero okay. Let's check if the value is correct. So, going back to student. Okay, so yes, you can see here that we successfully inserted our first entry. So, here's student ID. So, as you can observe, like I have mentioned, it is auto-incremented. So, that is why you have a 1 here. Then, first name, there. Okay. I hope you guys are still okay. Next, so don't worry, we're almost done with the first objective. Next is to read. So in read, the read operation is to spell. We can choose what entry or field or information that we want to see. So I will go to my previously created database, which is the first LMS. So let's say module. So, in this example, in this slide, you can see our statement for select or read is select. Asterisk means to select all values from the table student. So, if you want to select all the entries, you use the asterisk. So, I will demonstrate how to select all entries using SQL statements manually. So our example is a module. So module table. So select all from module. If you select go, it will select all the entries or data inside the module ID. We have here the module ID. So this is a different example. We have varchar here, CS module 1, IT module 1, and then the other columns, we have quiz, seat work, and assignment. So in the presentation, another example in this presentation, we have here the student. As you can see, we have your first name, and we have your Ada Lovelace, if you guys know that, and Edward Snowden, if you guys know that. Okay, next. So now we're going to select distinct or specific entries from tables. So I will do another example. So our example here is to select a specific professor. We have here Sheldon Cooper or Annabeth Chase. Now let's check if on how we will do the select statement. Okay. Go here in the professor table. Here. So you can see we have already input. So if you want to select a distinct value, all you have to do is change the asterisk into the variables or the field names of the column that you want to select. So I'm going to use a slanted, I don't know how you call this, but a slanted quotation. Please correct me on what is this called. So you're going to do that, and then so professor ID, and then comma, and then first name, and then last name. There, from professor. So let's check if we will have the same output. So this is a specific way. I didn't include middle name. As you can see, I didn't include selecting their middle name, username, what else? What are the others? So there, I didn't include. So let's see. In this statement, it will select all, but not all the columns, only specific columns that I have inputted in the select statement. So there, as you can see, we have put in the statement professor ID, first name, and last name only from the professor table. So we have professor ID, first name, and last name. Now, if you really want to select really very specific entries, you will put a where clause. So in this example, in the read operation, it is more specific. So we will go to course table. Oh, you cannot see the presentation. I'm sorry. So here, we're going to select the course table. And then here in the course, again, so we will change the asterisk because asterisk selects everything. So we're going to choose our specific column. So course, name, and then from course. So here, to make it more specific, we will use the where clause. So where clause it is useful to select a specific value that you want to read or retrieve. So where, and then course name, and then like. So like here is to select entries with the same value. So like, so you can go to W3 schools to really further understood what the different statements for selecting or about where clause. But here I'm going to select any entry that has an S on it. So that is why I'm going to use a single quotation and then percentage sign, S, percentage sign, and then a single quotation mark here. So the asterisk here is used to determine where it is where the letter or the string is located. So in this example, we have a percentage sign in between, so it is defined as looking. I want to select an entry that has S in between, so it can be an S at the start, an S at the middle, or an S at the last part. So now our second procedure here is select go, and here. So like what we did, I selected only the column of course name, which is it showed here. And then from course, where course name is like S, anything S in between, so we have here. Same with the presentation, it is as we have found, we selected S, so it shows SQL. Okay, next. Next is update. On update, update is also modifying our entries. So in everything that we do online, we always have to update things, update our info, update. So in here, we have here from the program table, we're going to edit a program entry. So in this example, here. So here we have another different SQL statement. Now we're going to use the update statement. So it says here update program and set. Set here is to change or modify the specific column that you want to change the value. So I will select the program description column and I will change its value to communication is the key. And then where clause again, where clause is used to specify or choose a specific field or value. But I only want to change it using, na-expose na. Okay, so I'm only going to change here program to change communication is the key at the program ID number 2. So in here, on number 3 procedure, you can see under the program ID number 2, we have here communication is the key. So going back to the demo, here, actually the first thing that I have inputted here, communication is key, and then I added communication is the key. I'm not good with grammar, but please correct me. Let's try the update SQL statement in program ID number 1. Now let's try it on program ID number 1, which you can see in the slide. We're going to change program name, for example. So update, and then program table, and then set, and then I'm going to change the program name. Oh, I'm wrong. The slant thingy there. Program name, and then equals single quotation, and then I'm going to change computer science in computer engineering, for example. And then use the where clause where the program ID is equal to 1. Okay, go. Okay, now let's check if we change it. So program. Okay, here. So I changed the program name of program ID number 1 from computer science to computer engineering. Next, our last operation is to delete. So this is, you have to be careful when using this operation because sometimes you cannot, hindi mo na pwedeng balikan ang nawala na, sabi nga nila. So, may hugot. Pero you have to be careful in deleting a database or an entry. So you have to, if you're going to delete something that you think is, important, make sure to create duplicate databases just in case. So, lagi po natin nakakalimutan mag-duplicate, ganun. So, in here, there is, like create, update, we have a simpler method in deleting or dropping a database. So, first, I'm going to show an easier way to delete a database. So let's say this, LMS2DB, I'm going to delete this. So we're going to go to the, here, I'm going to, here. So as you can see on the presentation slide, you will go to, first you will select your database that you want to delete, and then go to Operations tab, and then under Operations tab, scroll down, you will see Remove Database. You will click on Drop Database. And then, okay. Ayan, bye. Oh, ayan na siya. Wala na siya, na-delete na siya. Di na natin siya pwede balikan. So, as you can see here, LMS2 has been deleted. If you want to do it manually using an SQL statement, so this is an example. I will select the database that I want to delete. Go to the SQL tab. Our SQL statement here is to drop database and the name of the database, which is LMS1 DB. And then, the next procedure, select go. Okay, let's check. So, as you can see, LMS1 DB, wala na siya. Iniwan niya na tayo. Okay. Yan. So, now, there are also different ways to delete aside from just the database only. We can also delete entries. So let's this example. So in this slide you can see we have here delete entry from student. So this is deleting a specific entry. Now I'm going to show a different example for you guys to further understand different tables. So in here, I'm going to delete rather a specific entry from the professor table. So delete from professor where, wait, I'm gonna duplicate this tab. Okay, so I'm going to check which entry that I'm going to delete. Yung may laman. Here. So, let's say I want to delete Professor ID number 1, Professor P001. So, I need to go back to, as you can see here, you can also see here the database that you have selected. So, since LMS3DB doesn't have any data inside, I'm going back to LMSDB1. And then, I'm going to delete P001 from the professor table. Okay. Ayan, copy-paste, professor, where, so, I'm going to delete everything, every data inside P001. So, professor ID is equal to P001. Okay. Go. Ayan, nagtanong siya, sure ka ba? Kasi kung hindi ka sure, pag-isipan mo muna. Ayan, so, na-delete na siya. Check natin kung if it did delete the entry. So, we expect that here, so only P002 is nawala na si P00. Okay, ayun na. Sorry, that was a very, very long demonstration on how to use SQL statements under the CRUD operations. Now, we're going to a more computational part of SQL. Ayan na, math na. So, we're going to, now, our next objective is about aggregate functions. So, what are aggregate functions first? So, ayan, research ako. So, aggregate functions, it is defined as it calculates, these functions calculates a set of values to get the desired result. So, this is more, actually on the more computational side to get specific data with values. First, we're going to identify use our statements using the min and max. So from what we have learned under the CRUD operations, the select statement is used to read or retrieve data. So now using the aggregate functions, we will select the minimum value and the maximum value. So to give an example, let's go to the module table. And then here we have digits. So we will go first with the minimum. So as you can see here, the SQL statement is select minimum, and then inside the close and open parenthesis is your column from the table, which is from the module table. Now, next here on the right side, we will also try the maximum value inside the table. So we select maximum, same thing, quiz from the module table. Now, let's check. Okay. So, let's try. So instead of doing quiz, I will try seat work. So minimum and then seat work. There. So what do you guys think from the chat? What will be the result? So what is the minimum value or digit inside the seat work column? Anyone? Hello? Are you guys still there? So what is the minimum value under the seat work column? Wala na nagsalita. Hello? Are you still there? Blurred. Oh, okay. Okay, so I will... Oh no. Di daw kita. Blurred yung screen. Okay. So I will just tell you guys. Okay. Eto. Here, ayan. So here, I'm sorry guys. So here, in this, can you see it a little clearer? So in here we have, ayan. So my question again was, what will be the output of this SQL statement to get the minimum value under the seat work column? We have here on the first row 45 and on the second row 28, and Jamel Ali got the correct answer. So let's check if 28 nga po ang sagot. And yes, so the minimum value under the seat work column is 28. Now we're going to go to the maximum. Ayan, maximum na. So now what is the maximum value? Between 45 and 28. 45 ba yun? Ayan. Thank you, Veronica. Max seat work is 45. Ayan. Ayan, nandiyan po pala sila. Okay. Yes! Yan. Correct, guys. Clap. Yan. Maximum is seat work 45. Okay. Next na. Next is the count, average, and sum. So, the count, average, and sum here, first on the left part of the presentation, we're going to talk about count. So, I have also screenshotted here to make it clearer kasi nga malabo yung, from my end, malabo yung connection ko. So, here we have here the example of seat work between 45 and 28. If you use the count here, so select count seat work from module, it will count how many entries are there under the column seat work. So we only have 2 examples here, or 2 rows. So that is why if you use this statement, it will show the value. Oh no! What happened? Okay, it will show the value of that there are 2 entries under the seat work. Next is average. So in here, it will average the entries. So what is the average of 45 and 28? Hindi na po natin i-complete yan. We have here, the answer here is 36.5000. Ayan. And next is sum. So, what is the sum of 45 and 28? You can already see the answer here is 73. So, that is the difference between count, average, and sum. Okay, now we're going to talk about the last. Sadly, this is our last objective for today is about database relationships. Ayan na, inaabangan na nila database relationships. Okay, so first to have an introduction, database relationships according to the IBM site or the International Business Machine, they define database relationships as these are associations between tables that are created using joint statements to receive data. So, if you have an organization, if you are planning to have an organization or a simple business, and if you want to make a database for your chosen business, database relationships are handy to connect values from different fields, from different table in order for you to retrieve a data. So given our previous example, we have students, professors. So database relationships is useful to get values under the student table and get values from the professor table, something like that. So, okay. So in making a database relationship, in making a diagram, I won't go technical on this, but as a computer science student, I use Lucid Chart. If you guys are familiar with Lucid Chart, this is a site. You can create diagrams online and offline via Lucid Chart. This is to visually organize the tables that you want to create in your database. So I have made an entity relationship diagram or ERT for our example today, which is about the learning management system. So we have here what we have done, or you have seen a while ago, we have the student table, we have the professor table, program table, course table. I also added here an enrollment table. So if you're going to create a diagram, there are many ways. So it can be more complex or more simple. It depends on you. So to connect everything, that is why ERD stands for Entity Relationship Diagram, there are different notations in a database relationship. So I will only show you about the crow's foot notation. So this is what crow's foot notation looks like. We have one, so the symbol or the notation for one is a line. We have many, so obviously there are many lines, and then one and only one, 0 or 1, 1 or many, and 0 or many. So this is actually a more elaborate database relationship. So don't worry, this is actually more on a deeper part. So I will only tell you the three main relationships, database relationships. So starting with one-to-one. Okay. So in a one-to-one relationships, an example, actually one-to-one relationships, it is actually hard to determine what tables or entries that you can link that is only has a one-to-one relationships. Especially in our example, a learning management system, you cannot really think of a value or a field or a variable that has a one-to-one relationship with. So, paano ba? Simplihan natin. Like us people, we can't only give our service to one people. So that is, you cannot only, like give and take per se. You cannot only do it for one people. So that is actually, while doing this, it is actually hard to give an example. But if you guys have other examples about one-to-one, you can share it in the chat. So in here, an example that I have did using Lucid Chart is student or grade. So actually, a student can have many grades, right? But actually, to make it more specified, a student has only one average grade. So that is one way to an example of a one-to-one relationship. So a student can only have, so Student can only have one grade, and an average grade is for one student only. However, like I have said, this relationship, this type of relationship is really hard, and it's not actually commonly used because actually, let's say your grade is 80. That student can also have an average of 80, but that is more complicated. So this is what I can give as an example for one-to-one relationship. Next. The second example is one-to-many relationships. And according to IBM, again, International Business Machine website, the primary keys related to none or one or many records in the relational table or the relationship table. So it is not only one to many, but um, it can be also none to many. So in this example, a student can have many courses. So in here, a visualization using Lucid chart. A student, so you can see the notation. I use crow's foot notation. That is a single line on the left. And connecting it to the right on the course table, we have many arrows, which shows that a student can have many courses. I hope you guys are still okay. And then our last is many-to-many relationships. Ayan. Hindi na alam kung humuhugot kayo. Pero yan, many-to-many. Sabi ni Donald, playboy po yung one-to-many relationship. Ganun po ba? Ayan na, humuhugot na nga. Okay, last is many-to-many relationship. A student can have many professors. And a professor can have many students. So, as you can see here, again, Lucid Chart baka naman, sponsored, charot. Pero, here, as you can see, using the crow's foot notation, there are many lines to represent many. From student, connecting it to professor, there are also many lines. So, that ends my presentation. And here are the references that I used in today's SQL. So, I used WAMP server as my database server. W3 schools is what our reference in SQL. And IBM, you can have a more deeper or technical research about database relationships on their website, IBM. And for diagrams, offline and online, you can use Lucid Chart. So again, I am Atcha Abe and thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Athena or Miss Atcha, for sharing your knowledge about. Wait, is my voice po clear?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you again, Miss Atcha, for sharing your knowledge about SQL. And we are truly grateful for your time and effort to explain your insights para mas madali naming maintindihan through parang analogy yung mga hugot. So with that, I think we broke our first impression, guys, and we already had a better understanding about SQL. Di ba, guys? Tama ba? Yan. May I see nga kung naintindihan nyo talaga. Send an emoji that you like to response. Okay, thank you, Mr. Jamil Ali. Okay, I guess pupunta na tayo ngayon sa ating Q&A section. So we'd love to hear from you guys. Definitely you have some questions and clarifications on your mind right now. If so, feel free to send it sa ating link na binigay ng ating team. So, yun. You can send din pala a question by using anonymous option kung naiya kayo i-view yung profile nyo. And, yun. You could ask din about sa related sa web development. Yun. Advice din sa mga hugot. Baka may sa Tina. Joke lang.
Actually,
Pwede.
humugot na ako eh. If you guys don't know, I have a Facebook page, Atcha Abe. Kakapost ko lang, humugot ako doon. So, share nyo na din.
Ayan. Okay, guys, while waiting for your questions, ayan, meron na palang questions. Okay po, i-present po natin. Just a minute. Okay. Ayan po. Nakikita na po ba? Or
Yes, okay.
Ayan. Does SQL work in real time? Example, you made an inventory with some items and someone buys an item. Will the number count go down automatically or will you have to put it manually?
Okay,
Yan
thank
po.
you for that wonderful question. Anonymous Shay. Gusto ko sana siya i-shout out, pero okay, so thank you. So, actually, there are many ways you can to so yes, to answer it, yes, SQL can work in real time. However, in order to do that, so since example here is to make an inventory with some items and someone buys an item, will the number count go down automatically? So actually, the first step in making this automatically is to do it manually first. So there is a feature, it depends. So in what I use, the WAMP server, in WAMP server we were taught to put an SQL statement or an operation manually, and that manually inputted statement will do its operations automatically in real time. So for example, um, you want to select, so since your question is if the buying an item, so if this person buys an item, it will deduct. So if from what we have learned, so you can incorporate aggregate functions to really, or aggregate functions or other computational operations to manually put it first to deduct if this. So let's say we have a variable type named buyer and then count, something like that. And then if buyer, malalim na yun eh. Gusto niyo pa talaga ng gano'n, pero komplikado. Pero if buyer, kung selects item 1, do this, parang ganon. Malalim na yun. Pero if you get the logic behind it, ang answer dyan sa tanong mo is you have to set it first manually. Then after setting it, it will automatically work in real time. There are other ways using SQL to make this possible and more convenient not only for the programmer but for the users as well. Thank you.
So ayun, parang expert yung nagtanong neto.
Oo
So
nga eh.
ayun, so ayun, sana nasagot namin yung question mo. And sa next question, is Lucid Chart for free?
Sadly, no. Lucid Chart is not for free. It is actually limited lang. Pero I still use it kasi it is handy. Ang tip na pwede ko ibigay sa'yo is, ang ginagawa ko kasi since, bayad-bayad kasi siya. So, if I'm going to make a document, dinidelete ko na lang kasi limited lang yung documents na pwede mong gawin. Pero, ayun, kung ayaw mo gumastos, I know we are all broke right now. So, i-delete na lang yung documents, then create another one. So, you don't have to pay for it. Ganon.
Yan, hacks by Miss Atcha. Yan.
Yes.
Okay. Next question. Yan. If we are going to host a student management system, for example, online, how do we include the database po? Yan.
Host a student management online. What kind of student management? It has to be more specific. Actually, I don't have any knowledge pa in exporting your database online. So ayun nga, estudyante pa lang ako and I have a lot to learn pa. This is what I can only give you. Pero when you're going to do, actually, a student management system, you have to be more specific. What kind of student management system is it? Ganon. Pero how to include the database, that is a more technical na and I cannot answer that. So, ayun.
Yan, sobrang advanced talaga ng mga nagtatanong. Ayun.
Grabe,
Thank you, guys.
parang
So, ayun. Next question. Any tips po you can share for best database practices? Ayun po.
any tips for best database practices? Actually, the best tip that I can give you is to, practices, is to practice. Research pa, try na explore ka ng different sources mo. Yun nga, like I have mentioned, I use W3 Schools. That is one of the most reliable sources for SQL. And then, actually, aside from the technical part, aside from the coding part, one tip that I can give you is to always challenge yourself na when it comes to database relationships din. Kasi yon, I am also having online classes and naging challenge din siya actually for me is na hindi pala lahat ng how you your point of view is not always exactly what it seems. So, kung wari gumawa ako ng diagram, yung diagram na ginawa ko, how I think about it logically, it is not just, hindi lang yun yung way or method. So, you always need then to show what you think or your diagrams to other people to let them know din. Kasi may mga bagay na hindi tayo alam na included pala. Let's say, kung wari, yun nga, LMS. Let's say you created a learning management system database na wala palang enrollment kasi like I have shown a while ago may enrollment table. Hindi mo alam na may ganun pala na pwede palang makadagdag at makatulong sa database na gagawin mo. So you can you really, it is not only na one man may turn doon. Yun. Hindi ka nag-iisa dito. You always, in everything, you always have to ask for advice for other people to check din yung iyong database. Kasi yun nga, it can also help you explore different, yun nga, fields, tables, entities, or strategies. Kasi alam natin yan, students and professionals, na kapag nagko-code, if meron kayong mahanap na mas shorter na syntax or statement, that is also one way na to help you in being more efficient in making or creating your database. So, ayun. Thank you for that wonderful.
So, yun. Grabe, sobrang TED Talk. Ayun, nakaka-inspire. Ayun. Okay, next question. Yan, what database do you recommend for beginners to use? Yan.
Ayun, WAMP server po talaga is what we use. And kung wari, if WAMP server is more on the technical end din kasi, one way for beginners is to lucid chart. And if you want to be more technical in creating your diagrams, we ComSci students use MySQL Workbench. So, yon Workbench. Doon kami nag-create ng ERD. At the same time, you're going to do your diagrams visually. Doon then, you can specify the fields, yung mga data types, connections, what notations you can use, ganon. Ano ba recommend ko? Ayun, yun na talaga, yung mga shino ko kanina na references. Ayun.
Ayan. Thank you po. And siguro ito na yung last question na formal. Okay. If we are going to deploy a project online, will SQL work side by side with Firebase?
Ayan, uunahan ko na. I'm sorry, but I am not familiar with Firebase. Ang lalalim na po. Pero ayun, I am not knowledgeable about Firebase.
So, yun, guys. Sobrang advanced nyo. Ayan. Thank you. Disclaimer lang din yung yung topic natin today is about simple database operation. Ayun. So, sana nakatulong yun sa inyo. And sa last question, I think wala na. Medyo, yun. So, thank you again, Miss Athena, for sharing your knowledge. So, guys, we hope na na-answer namin lahat ng questions nyo. If we don't get your question during today's session, you may ask sa amin or you may message us sa aming Facebook page. And also as a reminder, if you haven't uploaded your selfie, kindly upload it sa given link na ibibigay ng ating team moderator. So, meron nang nag-upload. Yun. Ayan. Nagbigay na si Ate Justin ng link. So, you could check that out. And that's it. Hope to see you there sa G Drive folder natin kahit sa picture lang. Okay, thank you again, Miss Athena. We really appreciate your time and effort and teaching us the basics in SQL. With that, what are your final remarks in our participants today?
Ayun, like I always say, thank you so much, especially sa Developer Student Club for inviting me today. Actually, yun nga, first time ko to and sobrang thankful ako sa inyo. And sa mga participants and people who are watching in the live stream, thank you. I value your time. I hope you learned a lot. And don't forget, if you want more, if you want to see me more, or if you want to learn more with me, you can check my Facebook account and YouTube account, Atcha Abe. Ayan. ATCHA space ABE. Ayan. Thank